All right, we're almost ready to start another episode.
Yes, we are. Refreshed my coffee. It's getting a little late night, but we got work to do.
Is that just coffee that you have in there? Nothing else?
No, I have some MCT oil as well.
I don't know what that is. I'm not even going to ask.
It's
So,
it's my fasting day, Mike. I didn't eat today. I just got to make it through breakfast tomorrow.
well, I mean, we're recording spill the beans. We're recording 2 episodes in one night, and it's getting pretty late. I'm gonna have to order pizza when I leave here.
Well, I got
So,
a 5 a.m. I got to be picked up at the house at 5 a.m. tomorrow, and I think we're going to go to at least midnight tonight.
oh boy. Well, you better get started then.
Well, let's do it. Here we go.
Risk. The final frontier. These are the stories of the Axon enterprise. Our mission to protect life, to seek amazing people, and live epic tales. Come, let us boldly go.
Welcome to episode 12 of the Bully Go podcast. And it's almost like episode 11B. This is a continuation, if you've been following along, of the last podcast where we are doing what would you call it, Rick? A rebuttal?
I think it's a rebuttal. Yeah.
Or rebuttal, that's a good word, or really just like getting the facts out there. And I mean, we've been doing that through many of the episodes. And I think, we're talking about the John Oliver, show that, was a real hit piece against Taser. And if you watched episode 11, I mean, we went through methodically some of the mistruth, the misinformation that was covered there, and we did that for a reason. And I mean, that reason was like, I mean, we like comedy. It's not like we don't. We've said the first episode, you're a fan of John Oliver, but I mean,
My eyebrows. That was some funny shit right there.
uh,
That was pretty good.
yeah, that when you compare to the Burt, that's for sure. And you're gonna think about that. Like,
Oh yeah. Yep. Now the whole world knows I've got Muppetophobia.
oh my God. Okay. All right. Now he's going to need therapy over that. But I mean, like we're fans of John Oliver, we're obviously fans of comedy, but we are setting the record straight because we are in a serious business, and the serious business that we are in is providing technology to our police partners. And it literally is a matter of life and death. And when you spread misinformation out there, that affects, I mean, that deeply affects how officers do their jobs, and that affects their safety, and that affects the safety of the communities that they protect. So let's jump into episode 12, and let's continue going through and correcting the record of misinformation that's out there from the John Oliver show.
Yep. And I've got to say, look, some of my advisors said, "Hey, Rick, excited delirium's not the hill to die on. Like
Mhm.
it's been canceled. We should just let it go." I mean, look, the allegations here were pretty outrageous, and I think uh, it it's worth responding. And look, the fact that excited delirium as a term got canceled has some serious safety
Mhm.
repercussions, and we're going to get to those today. And so I think it's worth taking the time to go through all this.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I learned a lot myself in that the last episode, where the term itself might be controversial, and as you said, has got canceled, if you will, in the early 2020s and everything else that was going on during that time. But I mean, the science behind what's happening in terms of your PhD level just dropping to critical levels, there is no controversy around that.
Yep. All right, let's go back to John Oliver's take on excited delirium.
Here is one of Axon's go-to medical experts trying to lay out the argument.
In excited delirium, you have an individual who's in a delirious state. He's not oriented to reality. He has hallucinations. He can't think straight. They describe as having superhuman strength. You can taser them, you can hit them, and it doesn't seem to bother them. They still keep going. And then they get into a struggle. And the longer they struggle, the worse it is and the greater probability that death will occur.
Wait, what? If someone dies during a struggle, it's probably because of the struggle, not because of an unrelated syndrome.
I, I mean, no, I know you have something to say, but it's a ridiculous statement. It's not even funny.
Yeah. We were debating earlier Do we think there was a live audience there? I think
I
Kool-Aid and Dylan think that's canned laughter.
I it's 100% canned laughter because you can tell when the audience laughs, because you can hear them, and then with the others, there is definitely canned laughter in that audience. I mean, like I said in the episode 11 when the first part of this, like I had not watched this episode. I mean, I had not watched John Oliver, um, because I knew it was sort of fake news until right before we cut episode 11. And like I noticed that when I was watching it, like that's clear to me that's piped in laughter.
Well, the good news is Kool-Aid and Dylan are going to get us sound effects. So in one of the future episodes, we're going to have our own fake studio audience.
Well, I mean, I do say some pretty funny things. I am waiting to get a few laughs, and it's kind of awkward when I make a joke and no one laughs. It's like if a tree falls in a forest. Was it a joke? So, all right. So I mean, this guy here. I mean, I know you probably know him, but obviously off the bat, you could tell there's some editing going on to make him look like an idiot.
Well, and that's Vince DiMaio. He actually wrote a book on excited delirium to sort of document this phenomenon. And look, John Oliver this is just bullshit where he says, nobody's saying that they're just dying unrelated to the struggle. In fact, it is the struggle. It is the exertion that kills them. And in fact, many people have concluded among these experts, the best way to save these people is to stop the struggle. Now, there's two ways to do that. These people could obey when they're given a lawful order and not resist, and they could stop struggling themselves. But if they're going to continue to fight, this reminds me of like the Russian invasion of Ukraine. There's an easy way to stop it. Like they chose this war and they're causing it. Maybe that's a bad analogy, but I get amped up when people say, oh, there's two sides to this. No, there's not. The Russians invaded Ukraine and that country is fighting for its life. In this case, or at least in most of these cases, look, there might
Right.
be some cases where police are doing something wrong or being abusive. But in general, the police are there dealing with somebody who's resisting. And it is not an option to sprinkle fairy dust and have them go to sleep. We've seen the injury charts I was shown earlier today. In fact, let me, since it was last week now for our viewers, I'm going to put this back up. This is what the injury charts look like. Like they could choose a firearm. That's a pretty bad option. Hit them with a baton, punch them, kick them, or use the taser to end that struggle as quickly as possible. But it's not risk-free. It is going to be stressful. But as we saw in some of our various charts, the stress from the taser is less than just about anything else, with the possible exception of pepper spray. But if you have somebody who feels no pain,
Pepper spray is not going to work either.
pepper spray ain't going to work. It's not really an option. And look, the easiest, they're criticizing me saying, well, I'm telling customers to go use our product. The easiest in these dangerous situations, look, if I wanted to be completely Machiavellian and only protect my company's interest, I would tell cops, no, don't use my product. If you have somebody who looks like they're going to die in your custody, I don't want any piece of that. You're on your own. Go figure it out.
Right.
But like, look, we started this to try to save lives. We believe our product is likely the best solution. If you have to use force, you should do it quickly, get them under control, get them chemically sedated. But to say, I don't make any money by cops using our product. We make money when they buy it. If they only used it in safe situations, that's great for us, but it's not good for them. Like I think about these men and women out there on the street, like what option do you have? You know, on one of these episodes, we'll have to show some of these incidents to show you the sort of insanely difficult situations police have to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
All right, let's come back now and see what else John Oliver has to say about excited delirium. Whoops, here we go.
Axon and those it works closely with have gone to great lengths to familiarise police with the term excited delirium. At one point, one of the company's attorneys and an expert they funded started this group, which distributed a flyer explaining excited delirium with both recommended taser products to subdue people showing the symptoms and featured this helpful medical crisis mnemonic explaining all the signs of excited delirium with one of the I's standing for I can't breathe.
All right, let's pause for just a
Sure.
second here on that I can't breathe. Isn't that exactly what you would want police to be notified of? Hey, if somebody is saying I can't breathe, they may be in a medical crisis.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we do.
Yeah, I mean, I think his I don't know what he was trying to say there.
Right.
Like and we have had a long history of supporting the Institute for the Prevention of In-Custody Death because it supports our mission. And if we save people, that's less human tragedy, and frankly, it's less lawsuits for us.
And we support a lot of nonprofits who do great work in terms of improving policing, supporting and improving policing.
So let's go through the IPICD's, some of their recommendations. So if you identify somebody, and let's take that I can't breathe.
Mhm.
That's a distinctive reference clearly to George Floyd. What are our recommendations, or what's the IPICD's recommendations? Number one, early call out. Call for medical assistance. Boy, could that have been helpful in George Floyd if before they went to subdue him, if they had called for medical assistance?
And a supervisor.
And exactly, a supervisor on scene, hey, maybe that would have made a difference. The second, scene safety and quick planning, right? Get ready because this is going to be a difficult situation. Don't go into it half-cocked. 3, rapid capture. You've got to minimize the struggle,
Mhm.
right? If somebody's in a medical crisis, these are super helpful things to be aware of rather than an officer just coming like, hey, this guy's being aggressive. I'm going to go take care of business without a plan,
Mhm.
right? We talk about safe restraint position. Since these guys are at risk, make sure you're restraining them in an area way they can breathe. Be prepared and coordinate with your paramedics about potential chemical sedation. Now, again, this really pisses me off because some in the media have called this, again, they've accused paramedics of using quote unquote date rape drugs.
Mhm.
Because they use ketamine because ketamine is a uniquely effective tranquilizer and it has a high ratio of the effective dose to the lethal dose. It is likely the safest option to sedate somebody so you can calm them down. And then the next thing paramedics will look at doing is actually injecting a buffer into your bloodstream. You know what that does?
No.
It brings your pH back
Back
into
up.
normal bounds. And medical groups that have been doing this are showing higher survival rates. If they sedate somebody and they buffer their bloodstream, I had one medical group, frankly, they've asked me not to mention them by name because it's so controversial. Their hospitals are saying, we'll let you keep doing this, but you can't talk about it with the media
Incredible.
because we don't want bad publicity saying that we're sedating people for the police. But they're showing it saves lives. And then finally, expedited medical transport. Like, John Oliver, are you against this? Are you basically saying we shouldn't be training police to take these precautions when they're dealing with somebody in this excited state, which you clearly don't want to see called excited delirium?
Crazy.
All right, let's come back here and let's press on.
I'd argue the term excited delirium should just be gone forever. And there's actually been some encouraging news on that front. In 2023, the National Association of Medical Examiners said it should not be listed as a cause of death. These states have now restricted the use of excited delirium, and New York and Hawaii currently have legislation to do that in the works.
All right. Well, you know what? Yes, congratulations. The term was canceled first in California. So let's talk about that. Actually, Mike, I'm going to take you off here because you're blocking some of the text there. So who was behind this bill in California? Well, the Consumer Attorneys of California, the Plaintiffs Trial Lawyers Association.
Mhm.
So they went to the state of California and they said, look, we don't like having to defend against or try to sue police when they can put forward this argument about excited delirium. So rather than having to win in front of a jury or win the scientific argument, you just go to the progressive legislators and say, hey, I want you to cancel this. This is a dangerous example of cancel culture.
Mhm.
The National Police Accountability Project sounds great, but these are civil rights attorneys
They sue law enforcement.
who sue law enforcement. And yeah, by the way, the term civil rights attorney to me is a total misnomer. Look,
Correct.
there are some good people who went out and worked on civil rights. But most people under the term civil rights attorneys, these guys, forgive me, are ambulance chasers who prey on the suffering of people who've died in dangerous police confrontations. And every police confrontation is dangerous, by the way. These are like car accidents. These are not safe scenarios. And these folks basically went out and said, We want you to cancel this so we don't have to argue about what caused these people, because you know what they are convinced killed these people? The cops.
Right.
Every single time. Forget that the guy's high on cocaine. Forget he's got ARVC, an enlarged heart, or all these medical issues. If the police touch him, it's the police's fault. So we can sue the police. Oh, and it's those Taser guys' fault. So we can sue the manufacturer. And we don't want to have to argue about things like science and facts. Cancel the term so that we can blame the police and we can get a payday. Now, one of the big problems with this is you have now banned in California, medical examiners can no longer give their scientific opinion. They're politically constrained. They've been muffled. They can't say the words excited delirium, nor can you use the term excited delirium in police training. So the training that warned police officers, hey, this is a dangerous condition, you can't do it anymore. People are going to die because we are basically banning the police from talking about the dangers of these situations and what they can do to keep people alive.
To prevent them.
Now, if I'm really cynical, if you're an attorney who makes money suing cops every time somebody dies, you're making more money the more people die. Now, even for me, I'm too much of an optimist. I don't believe these attorneys think they're killing people. I think they've drunk their own Kool-Aid and they think police are killing people and everything else is just an excuse. And if they just sue enough cops, people will stop dying in custody.
Right.
But you know what? That's la la land. And in fact, by banning this term and banning the training, congratulations, you're killing more people and you're going to be able to sue the cops some more.
And it's no longer a medical examiner rendering their medical opinion. It is they've been forbidden to use a term, which now that's a political decision that the state has made.
Yep. The politicians have decided that in the state of California, the cops are always to blame. Anything else is just an excuse, and you can't even say it. All right. Let's press on with more of John Oliver's arguments.
When that death involves a taser, Axon can get heavily involved. Just listen to one former spokesman explain that to a reporter.
I spoke with a representative of the company. He told me that when he reads a news headline, something about death and tasers, he gets in touch with the local police department.
And I've got them pre-staged as a draft.
Yeah.
I literally just have to plug in the name of the city and say, dear so-and-so, I understand you may have had an arrest-related death. Here's my checklist. Here are some recommendations.
Yeah. First of all, we had Steve Toto on a couple of the very early episodes. I mean, Steve is just...
Yeah, that is a blatant lie, John Oliver. He is not a former spokesperson.
Well...
Steve Toto is still a spokesperson. He's still with us.
Well, it's still... I mean, we are in 2025, and they are playing a clip from some news show from 2017. Like, that is how far back they're going to try to get their material to get a laugh. But nothing that Steve said, and Steve actually talked about this, and we weren't even talking about the John Oliver show. He talked about helping police with a checklist so they know exactly what to look for and what data and what facts to gather if there was indeed a death where a taser may have been involved in the situation.
Yep. And going back to it, yes, this does happen 35 times a year. And every time it happens, you can guarantee there's attorneys lining up to sue that agency or to criminally charge that police officer. And you know what? Yeah, we help them make sure they gather the right information. Let me give you an example. We all know the importance of cardiac rhythms. If somebody collapses in a policing incident and the paramedics show up and they put a defibrillator on that person, it will record the heart rhythm they're in. I think everybody can agree that's important evidence. We need to know what was happening in that person. But most police departments may not know that you need to ask the paramedics to give you a copy of what are called those rhythm strips so that they go into evidence. And I can't tell you how many cases somebody's died in police custody, and by the time the police go to get the rhythm data, it's gone. Nobody saved it. That's one of many examples of the types of things you need to do in these investigations. There's certain types of brain analysis you can do to check to see if there's signs of asphyxia or not, or signs of some of the precursors of the now canceled excited delirium. Um, so yeah, we absolutely have a checklist. And I think it would be irresponsible if we didn't, because look, we've been through a few of these now. Most of our police customers have never been through this. There's 18,000 police departments. These Taser deaths are actually exceedingly rare at 35 a year compared to everything else. And so, yes, we help our customers knowing they're going to get sued. And those officers, some officers have gone to jail. We have one officer, can't remember his name right now, which is a little bit embarrassing. He's spending his life in prison. We're trying to get him out because he was accused of killing somebody with a taser in a place where it clearly did not play a role. And yet he's now been sentenced to life in prison. And that's a sort of travesty of justice that we want to make sure we avoid by making sure our customers are educated. And you can be damn sure the plaintiffs' attorneys who sue police, they're going out and they're getting their experts as well. We're not going to sit back and let these people run roughshod. We're going to help our customers gather the right evidence to make sure they have what they need to thoroughly investigate this and, yes, to defend themselves from these claims.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, there's also this misimpression that we're talking about the Chicagos and NYPDs, the LAPDs of the world. I mean, the majority of those 18,000 police departments throughout the U.S. are small town police departments with 25 or fewer officers. So they do not have the resources that big city police departments do. They do not have legal staff. They do not have access to medical staff. Like, providing a checklist is we are helping them understand, and they may only have an in custody death once every 20 years. They don't encounter this stuff like a big city police department or a larger jurisdiction. We're providing them with information to help them try to understand what happened.
100%. All right, let's press on. I'm proud of the fact we provide checklists. And thank God Boeing provides checklists with their equipment as well.
That's a great analogy.
And it doesn't even stop there. Axon's presence is even felt at the morgue, as the company sent hundreds of pamphlets a year to medical examiners explaining how to detect excited delirium. At one point, Axon was even filing lawsuits against medical examiners who'd attributed in-custody deaths in part to Taser use.
Well, this is an easy one.
Oh, well, it's actually not that easy.
Well, it's not easy, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard the story before.
Yeah, yep. So, first of all, yeah, we're sending information to medical examiners. Medical examiners are not experts in electrophysiology. They are people who perform autopsies. And for many of them, they never have dealt with a situation where a taser was used, and they are not trained in electrophysiology. And it's pretty easy for somebody to jump to the wrong conclusion and say, whoa, they were shocked with electricity. Well, it sounds like that may have done it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, we absolutely have an interest in educating them about the effects of Taser, about what they do, what they don't do. And so, yeah, we send information to medical examiners so that they don't just jump to a dangerous and non-scientifically supported conclusion. Now, let's go to this next part where he talks about us suing medical examiners. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because people say this like, Axon's a bunch of bullies. We're out threatening people's livelihood. Bullshit. When we sued this medical examiner, let me give you the backstory first. In Summit County, Ohio, there was a medical examiner, and in her office, they concluded Taser was the cause of death in 3 consecutive incidents. Because they wrote that the Taser caused the death, 5 deputies were criminally charged, 1 with murder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 15 were sued. So what did Axon do?
Support the police.
Yeah, well, and frankly, support the truth.
Well, I shouldn't have been so flippant,
Yeah.
but one, I mean, support the truth and support police who are trying to do the right thing.
And so what did we do? We sued that medical examiner, but we did not sue her for a dime of money. At no point was she ever at risk that we were going to come take her livelihood, which, by the way, people want to do that to police now. In places like Colorado, they've removed what's called qualified immunity, which means if you're a police officer, not only can you get shot and killed, not only can you get put in jail if you do something wrong, but now without qualified immunity, they can sue you and take all your assets and wipe out your family. Like, that is a travesty of justice that a split-second decision can now not only destroy your life, but wipe out your family. That was not what we were doing with these medical examiners. We sued for one. Our prayer for relief was simple. We think the medical examiner got it wrong, and she should have to defend her findings in a court of law. And that, by the way, folks, is the state of the law in Ohio. If you want to challenge a medical examiner, you do it in court. And so that's what we did.
And you sued for?
The only thing we asked for was to the courts to make her defend her rulings. And if she couldn't, she should change them. And guess what? After a 4-day bench trial, the court entered judgment in our favor. They found she had no scientific basis to find that the taser was the cause of death. Frankly, we think it was more of her political opinion. It was not a supported scientific opinion. The court ordered her to remove reference to homicide and to remove the contributory effects of electrical restraint. That's what judges do. When there's a dispute, they look at the facts, they look at the evidence, and they issue rulings. And we kicked her ass. We kicked her ass because she was wrong. It was not supported. And by the way, again, I want to make this really clear. She didn't have to pay a dime. There was no personal repercussion other than maybe some embarrassment that we called her out that she was wrong.
But no financial repercussion.
None. We have never intimidated people. We've never threatened medical examiners with any sort of personal repercussion. But we have said, look, if you say the taser killed somebody,
Prove it.
you better have the proof, because we will challenge you. We will not sit idly by and let you call us murderers and all these terrible things, or put officers at risk of going to prison for something that's an unsupported opinion. So, yep, we will defend our technology, and more importantly, we'll defend our customers, and we will stand there with them.
So this is the case that he's referring to. And
That is the famous case where the company was then Taser sued medical examiners, and I'm proud we did, and we'll do it again. These people, their job is to come up with scientifically supported and defensible opinions, not their personal or political opinions.
Yep. All right, what you got next?
Let's keep going.
On staff tasings, known as exposures, are corporate rituals and are often used to initiate interns or new recruits. Employees have even made up their own slang for it, ride the lightning.
I mean, it's just not true. We do voluntary exposures at Taser, now Axon? Absolutely. Have I had a voluntary exposure? Did I ride the lightning, or now we can say ride the buffalo. The buffalo.
Ride the buffalo. It's back, baby. The
back.
buffalo has been uncanceled.
Been uncanceled. Yeah. Did anybody force me to do it? Or have we seen? No, it's not. No one's. I mean, I don't think that they understand how passionate people who work at Axon are about our mission to protect life.
Hey, Kool-Aid, have you been tased? That was a yes from the
That was a
Kool-Aid is the man of mystery. We're going to keep him behind the camera and let you all wonder who this mysterious.
But they
Kool-Aid
make it
is.
sound like it's some. Well, they don't make it sound. They said it like some initiation. There's no initiation. That does not happen.
Look, people say our product's dangerous. Then when we stand in front of it and we get hit, they say we're being reckless.
Right.
Our customers, many police departments encourage, some even require a cop to carry a taser. And look, I think that's a reasonable opinion or a reasonable thing to do. Why? Because number one, you want a police officer to understand what they're doing to somebody. They can understand its effects, and they'll have some empathy for what they're doing. And for us, similarly, what better way for me to show my belief in the safety of the product than to stand in front of it? But we are careful to make sure nobody feels pressured to do it. We have extensive training for our managers and others to make sure that this is entirely optional. It is not, some sort of hazing ritual. But many people certainly want to understand how our products work. And look, I've seen thousands and thousands of people taste. I used to teach our classes where we would have volunteers for officers in training. I've been in the building when we do it. I've done it 8 times myself. So this is just sort of this ridiculous thing where on the one hand, John Oliver is saying these things are deadly, they're killing people, but they're like hazing each other and tasing interns with it. Like, how do you reconcile those two things? Cannot both be true.
Yeah. I mean, he's basing what he's saying as he has up on the screen, this Reuters hit piece that came out. And sort of my favorite part of this is when this Reuters story hit, couple of years ago, saying that, it's all about loyalty and we make people get, tased, which is not a term we use, or get a tattoo. Like applications shot through the roof. People wanted to come to work for Axon when they read that article, did the exact opposite, I'm sure, what the reporter and those who supported this narrative thought. Like that just showed how passionate we were as a company to the mission and to the customers that we have in terms of supporting them.
We live in a world where a lot of people just don't give a shit. They go to their job only because they have to and they make a buck. Like, yes, we're a bunch of zealots. We are missionaries who are out to make the bullet obsolete. We're excited about what we do. We get tattoos, some of us. We don't force anybody to, but a lot of people get excited about it. We'll come back to tattoos. We have a secret reveal coming here in a little bit. But let's press on to this question.
Oh, I thought we were going to get a tattoo done here on the air, like live in the podcast.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. I like that idea. All right, let's see what else Mr. Oliver's got cooking for us.
There is still a lack of scientific consensus on the exact risks of tasers, and the company's insisted its weapons are the most thoroughly studied and safest force option available, and that in its view there are no confirmed cases of taser-induced cardiac arrest or electrocution. But it does say something, that when a voluntary tasing occurs on its own premises, where the company itself would presumably be liable, its employees are required to sign a waiver that warns of the potential for death at least 12 times, which is both very telling and, frankly, seems like overkill for any waiver. The one we make our studio audience sign only warns about death 4 times.
Well, I think in the end there, that puts it all in perspective. I'm an avid skier. Do you read what you sign when you rent a pair of skis?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, skiing has a much higher risk of death or injury than getting hit with a
100%.
taser. I mean, if I go back to those injury rates we showed you earlier from prospective police field studies, we have a lower injury rate than collegiate volleyball. And yes, when people do this, we have them sign waivers. And you know what the primary risk of death is?
Falls.
Yeah. That's why, hey, and it's not just waivers for us. When we do this at police departments, we've had people get injured because they didn't have spotters. They fell. We've had people knock their teeth
on
out.
the floor.
We've had people get concussions. And so, yeah, we do focus on how to do this safely if you're going to do it. And just like anything in America, you got to sign a waiver.
Yeah. I don't tell our legal staff this. I'm pretty sure when I got tased, I did not sign a waiver.
Oh, shit, Mike.
No. Well, but I survived. I didn't die. Oh, my goodness.
Yep. I'm not even going to say it, but we have a very good safety record. But yes, of course you sign a waiver, just like when you do anything with the most remote of risks.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's whatever, dude. You say it's dangerous because we tase interns and we make them sign waivers. We don't make them get tasered, but if they want to do it, yes, we make them sign a waiver, and they've got to read it so that they understand what they're getting into.
I actually just remember this point, like when that Reuters article, which he's basing this stuff off of, when it hit, not only did applications shoot through the roof, at the very next company event that we had, which is probably just 2 months later, maybe, if I remember correctly, one, we didn't shy away from tattoos or voluntary exposures, and the line for employees to get a voluntary exposure just a few months after this article ran in Reuters was around the conference center, like out the door, around the corner, like people were lining up to do it. Like they were lining. There was nobody. We didn't make them do it. They wanted to do it because they believed in the technology, they believed in the company, and they believed in our mission.
When you want to change the world, it takes believers.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue on.
Sergeant Laurie Williams says the taser reduces deadly force because police no longer draw their guns on suspects with bricks or knives.
Why the growing use of this weapon?
The Miami Police Department has set a record for big city police departments in that for the last 16 months, we have not discharged a single bullet at a citizen.
Okay, it is both impressive they went 16 months without a single police shooting, and also depressing that it's that impressive. Although, for the record, I'm not sure Tasers can take all the credit there. The more relevant fact may be that at that time, the DOJ was conducting an investigation of the Miami Police Department for use of excessive force, and once it concluded, you'll never guess, police shootings rose right back up. So, Tasers can probably take as much credit for stopping Miami police shootings in 2004 as the release of Shrek 2. I don't know. Maybe the Miami PD were too busy going back to the theatre multiple times to absorb the nuances of Shrek's hero's journey and/or trying to figure out how these two actually fucked.
All right, let's pause for a second and just soak in the ridiculousness of that argument. So what John Oliver is saying that, no, it wasn't the taser weapon, and I'll show you some data to support that it was the taser weapon that reduces shootings. They were under investigation. So a cop out on the street in the dark of night with a gun in their hand, dealing with whether or not to take somebody's life, he's alleging that officer is like, wait a minute, I shouldn't use my gun because the agency is under investigation. That is just requires such an outrageous belief that would be what caused it. And oh, by the way, Miami was the timing didn't even line up. While they were in investigation, there were shootings. It wasn't like that they're perfectly lined up. It's just frankly pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, it's John Timoney, who's the chief in Miami at the time. And again, they're pulling from 21 years ago, 2004. But I remember, like, John Timoney was former NYPD. He's a commissioner in Philadelphia. He was brought into Miami for reform. He was a reform-minded chief who did a lot of things to change that department at the time to improve community safety, which he did, drive down crime. And he is credited with the policies and the trainings and the technology they put in place where they went that long period of time and did not have a fatal or didn't have an officer involved shooting.
Hey, Mike, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what one of the findings of that investigation was?
That they did not shoot people willy-nilly in Miami?
Nope. That Miami should use
more tasers,
less lethal, more often.
Mm-hmm.
That was their conclusion. All right, so
that was the conclusion of
that DOJ investigation. That was one of their findings.
I knew the answer. I just wanted you to repeat, like,
yeah,
the Department of Justice.
And by the way, today we were with an agency, we're not going to mention which one, that is under one of these federal consent decrees that for some reason there's a subset of people who think regulation will solve everything. And if the government like steps in and sues police departments, that's going to make it better. And that agency was sharing with us today, these things do not help. They become these self-fulfilling regulatory nightmares. That agency has spent $300 million to comply with one of these consent decrees. The monitor, these are the people that come in that are given the ability to oversee the agency, are being paid like $3 million a year. This is a gravy train. Mm-hmm. And those people never sign off. So you stay under a consent decree for decades. Yep. And the people on the receiving end will tell you they are anti-helpful. I mean, Mike, tell your story. You were at Seattle PD.
For sure. Like we were brought in under Chief Kathleen O'Toole. I was the chief operating officer. I mean, the highest civilian in the department, and we're under federal consent decree, and it's literally destroyed that department. That was, you had to get within 90% compliance of, and go before the federal judge and prove that you were in 90% compliance. And then you had a couple of number of years that you had to stay in compliance, and you would get out from underneath the consent decree. I mean, we got within that range of compliance back in 2017. So here we are, 2025, and the city of Seattle is still under this federal consent decree. Like, it's just like what that does to a department, what that does to a community in terms of public safety. It's just absolutely just bananas when you think about it. When the original intent is like, oh, we found something, then you dig into the data, just like this agency that we were talking about, and the facts don't match up to launch a federal investigation showing that there's some bias or some pattern or practice of abuse within a police department. The same thing was shown in Seattle.
Well, and look, nobody's against oversight and making police departments better. But if you talk to experts in policing, it's pretty hard to find folks that will. I mean, I couldn't imagine anybody that would say that's why cops in Miami were shooting less people, because the cop on the street was thinking about some federal investigation of the agency.
No, that's not the way it works.
All right. Now let's talk about, do tasers actually reduce shootings? So with Mark Kroll, we talked about peer-reviewed articles. Now, let me come back. A peer-reviewed article means you have a scientific assertion, you write it up, you provide your evidence, and then that goes to a group of reviewers, some of whom are usually selected because they're going to be skeptical of your findings. And with a skeptical view, they read your paper and have to conclude, and they'll come back with questions, and they're going to challenge you. You have to prove to a skeptical review panel that indeed your science is good. And then it gets published. So let's look at what some of the peer-reviewed articles say about this. So this one, published by Kaminsky, basically looked at the influence. By the way, John Oliver talked about controlled studies. So this is an interesting one where they had a control by looking at agencies I actually think this was in the 4th district. There was some case law that actually made it harder to use tasers. And so the policies became more restrictive, meaning you could only use tasers at very high force levels. And what they found is, if you look at this here, whoops, let me get my laser pointer back. Where policies are less restrictive, allowing the taser to be used more, firearm use could be reduced by 2/3. And the results showed that agency policies which allowed a wider use of energy weapons were substantially and significantly associated with decreases in the number of fatal police shootings. And when they say significantly associated, that means statistically significant.
Correct. And I mean,
these weren't coincidence.
Not coincidence. And I mean, I don't know if you're going to show it, later on, but what John Oliver argues for at the end of the episode is for more restrictive use of tasers. So what he's arguing for is an increase in police shootings, not a decrease in police shootings, which means saving more lives.
Yeah, and look, I don't think that's what John Oliver thinks he's promoting. He thinks it's like, oh, they shouldn't use tasers because tasers are dangerous. But what this paper, this one from 2014, shows you is when you're more restrictive, shootings go up. All right, now, let's come back. This is Kaminsky again, published in May of 2022. Now, here they were looking at the impact of the 4th Circuit, had a 2016 decision in Armstrong versus Pinehurst, which limited the use of taser energy weapons to instances where a police officer is confronted with an exigency that creates an imminent safety risk, reasonably likely to be cured by the taser, i.e., they were more restrictive on when you could use a taser. And here's what they found. The study found there was an estimated 2.9 additional officer-involved shootings per month.
Per month.
3 people shot per month more in the 4th Circuit following Armstrong, compared to an estimated 4.17 fewer officer-involved shootings in the comparison states. So this is a control group. The control was set by the courts because they set a different standard in the 4th Circuit. And they went on to conclude, when the option to use CEDs, which is conducted electrical devices, that's a generic term for tasers, when the option to use taser weapons is restricted to only encounters that pose imminent danger, officers may often resort to the use of firearms and thus more officer-involved shootings. Let's press on and look at another. This is from a different group, published in, the Journal of Trauma. I remember this one. This is out of Dallas. They looked at 426 consecutive deployments of CEW, conducted energy weapons, another term for taser weapons, by the Dallas Police Department. They found in 5.4% of deployments, the use of the taser clearly prevented the use of lethal force by police.
Saved lives.
Saved lives. This is an emergency room physician, Eastman, out of Dallas, going case by case and analyzing, did this avoid lethal force? Now, in case studies aren't your thing, and maybe you want to see maybe a little bit more in terms of, let's look at an actual incident to see what we're talking about.
And just for 1 second here, though, for the actual incident, I mean, 5.4% out of the 400 and something odd. So you've saved 20 plus lives. I mean, those are real people, real families. Those are real officers who are changed forever whenever they discharge their firearm and take a life. That didn't happen because of the taser.
And as John Oliver might say, well, that's complete unprovable bullshit, because he would say you can't prove it. And you know what? You're right. You can't prove how the world would have been different, but some independent experts are concluding it likely saved these lives.
Yep.
But now let's show you one of these. This is a unfortunately, very common phenomenon called suicide by cop. And let me explain what you're going to see. This woman coming out of the house here is armed with a large kitchen knife. Now, if she gets within 21 feet of an officer by standard convention, she represents a lethal risk, and they are justified in using lethal force. Let's not focus on the 21 feet. That is a controversial standard, but it is well accepted. If you're approaching an officer with an edged weapon, they are authorized to use lethal force. Here we go.
Drop it. Drop the knife.
Taser, 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 taser. Drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife. Do not move, do not move. Go ahead.
You see that big, I mean, it's a purple ceramic knife, so it maybe doesn't look that deadly, but that can kill you. I don't know if you saw that officer. There was a gun pointed at her. And that's our hometown. That's Scottsdale PD. I've talked to some of the officers associated with that incident, and they said, you know what? She was a second away from getting shot and killed. And they only were able to save her because they had the new Taser 10 that has a longer range, and they were able to deploy it from farther away behind the car.
And then they got her help.
But these aren't the cases that make the news. You know, unfortunately, news media, people don't want to tune in. It's not as attractive to tune into the saves as it is to the controversial stuff.
Yep.
All right, let's get on to our next controversy.
That's a lot of them. I mean, he covered a lot in 30 minutes.
Oh, man. Well, we're spending hours. We're going to be 3 hours into this, addressing all this.
Because just a few months after that piece aired, CNN was airing stories like this.
About 1 week after learning from CNN that police tasered a 6-year-old boy in one of its elementary schools, the district said no more. In a letter sent to Miami-Dade's police chief, the school superintendent asked that police, quote, refrain from deploying tasers against elementary school students.
So that leads us to our last call question. Should police be able to use tasers on children?
That is a wild question to be asking. And also, that's basically what the news was like in 2004, debating the ethics of tasing 6-year-olds in between manufacturing consent for the Iraq War.
All right. Look, I'm a father. I get it. The way he just presented that, it sounds like the cops were in punishing, spanking some child with a taser, right?
Right.
And of course, as a parent, we're all like, my God, that sounds pretty horrific. But in fact, let's go look at the facts around that case. All right, so I'll just read this for you here. So police used a stun gun on a 6-year-old boy because he was wielding a piece of glass and threatening to hurt himself, officers said Thursday. Principal Maria Mason called 911 after the child broke a picture frame in her office and waved a piece of glass. I'm going to go and put our pictures up here so people can see this.
Yeah,
guys, we are dealing with a very extraordinary situation when a principal dials 911 and asks for police assistance with a 6-year-old. This is not a normal school interaction. When officers arrived, the boy had already cut himself under his eye and on his hand. And when the boy cut his own leg, one officer shocked him with a taser and another grabbed him to prevent him from falling. Now, we talked to the agency there. We went on to learn the officer had called a supervisor to get approval to disarm this young man from further harming himself. So this is not just cops willy-nilly tasering a 6-year-old. They're disarming a distraught young person who is self-harming.
And then what does it say after that? He was treated, taken to the hospital where he was committed for psychiatric evaluation. They got him help.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, here's the video they showed. He was riding his bike the next day. So look, I am by no means saying that cops should be out willy-nilly tasering 6-year-olds. But if my son was 6 years old in this situation, I would absolutely support this as a means of safely disarming him and getting him to help.
Now, I'm not even going to point out that they're trying to blame the city of Miami and draw a line back to them when they're actually talking about the Miami-Dade Police Department. Two completely different departments, different jurisdictions, but that's a minor point that I'll brush over.
So I'll tell you this as well. Wake Forest University has gone on to do research on this, and they concluded that youth are not at higher risk of serious injury than adults.
Yep.
Now, look, this isn't to say that you should be using tasers on kids. However, the news media completely misrepresents this. Anytime they hit a 17-year-old, the news story says cops taser a child. I have a 15-year-old son. He hurt me playing basketball recently. Like, he put his shoulder into me. He is a full-grown man.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact he's 15, yes, I want to see him cherished and protected. But do 15, 16, 17-year-old youth go do some very violent, dangerous stuff? Absolutely. And now, if you pass a rule, like the simple thing John Oliver might be suggesting is, well, we should have a law that says you cannot use a taser on a child, anyone under 18. That is a completely unworkable solution. First of all, when police are dealing with somebody, they don't know if you're a 17-year-old or a 25-year-old.
Correct.
And like, if you have a knife or are doing something very dangerous or a piece of glass, and again, what I understood from our discussions with the agency, this child was threatening to stab himself in the eye. Now, look, maybe John Oliver is a better cop than these guys were, and he would have magically been able to talk that child out of it where the principal couldn't do it and the police officer couldn't do it. But maybe John Oliver, from his safe studio, with his misrepresentation of this as something that was more punitive than, frankly, could be considered a rescue of a child from self-harm. But I'm not going to judge that officer. And if it was my child, I think this was a objectively reasonable use of force. And I think the internal reviews and or the courts agreed.
And then, as you pointed out, the science, the data back up that youth are at no higher risk for injury than adults are.
Well, let me come to another one. Pregnant women. Some people have suggested there should be a ban on using tasers on pregnant women. Now, I agree with the sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
My wife has been pregnant. I would be deeply concerned about police using a taser on them. And we covered extensively in our training. Knocking a pregnant woman to the ground is a bad idea. Causing muscle contractions in a pregnant woman is a bad idea. However, if a pregnant woman has a knife and is threatening to disembowel herself, and this has been a case that has been related to me has happened, the taser is an absolutely
Probably a good
great
idea.
option to disarm her. Or if she's coming in an officer like that woman we saw there. And that's where, I hate to get into my Star Wars references, but only a Sith speaks in absolutes. Yes, we should avoid using tasers on the young and on the elderly and on pregnant women. And look, we should avoid using tasers on anyone unless they are representing some sort of a risk where the alternative is something more dangerous.
I mean, it's a good reference, Rick. By the way, it's been many episodes since you've used a Star Wars reference. All right, what do we have next?
All right, let's press on. Let's see, how late is it here? It's coming up on 11 p.m. and we're running late. Mike's getting impatient. Here we go.
Let's now talk about the two main selling points for tasers, that they're effective and that they're safe. And let's start with effective. In the past, Axon's claimed tasers are between 80 and 97% effective at subduing a suspect in the field. But one survey of police data found many departments disputed that, with one city claiming they were as effective as little as 55% of the time. Basically, a coin flip. And Axon's response was incredibly to complain that survey didn't give them credit for instances when a suspect was subdued after an officer merely displayed or threatened to fire a taser. But at that point, that's not really about their device, is it? You can presumably get that result with a gun, a flamethrower, or a magic fucking wand.
So how about this? How about he take a magic fucking wand out on the street in a situation like that with a dangerous suspect who has a machete, a sword, things that we hear about that officers deal with on a daily basis, and let's see him do something with a magic fucking wand. I think that was the one piece that pissed me off more watching that episode.
Yeah, let's come back to this. In fact, this actually comes out of the UK, where they track taser use better than just about anywhere in the world. And what they found is in 88% of incidents, when a taser was displayed, people gave up. Now, it's not a magic fucking wand, and that doesn't happen with a magic wand. And it doesn't happen, even in some cases, with a firearm. Because if you point a firearm at a hardened criminal, a lot of times what they will say is, what are you going to do, shoot me? They know you can't shoot them with a firearm if they're unarmed. But with a taser, it has a very high deterrence rate. And in fact, we make them so they electrically spark and they make, frankly, scary sounds so that people will surrender. And when 9 times out of 10, showing somebody a taser ends the situation, John Oliver should be celebrating that. That is great policing, where you effectively use your voice and the threat of force to avoid the use of force. And so it's just friggin' ridiculous ignorance for him to say that.
Yeah, I think I've expressed my views here. That pissed me off more than just about anything else in this episode.
Let's see, what else was there? Oh, but look, he is onto something here. The real problem with tasers that I will accept is we are not effective enough of the time. We have got to get the reliability higher. And that's what we do with every version of our taser, is how do we drive that effectiveness up so that when police use lethal force, many people don't understand this. When police use lethal force, they do not use it because it's lethal. Police do not kill people. That is never their intention. We don't authorize police to be executioners. They use lethal force because it's reliable. It is the most reliable thing out there. It is more reliable than a taser, and that's why they don't use us in life or death situations yet. We are working to drive that effectiveness up.
I haven't seen in anything we talk about using numbers like this. I've seen departments. Some departments are 80%. Some departments, I'm sure, are 97%. This is their data. Some departments are 52%. Like, it depends on training. It depends on a lot of different things. But like we're very transparent about, one, the effectiveness of various taser devices, and transparent about what we're trying to do to increase their effectiveness, to give officers the tools that will help save lives.
Yep. And in fact, the 50%, that is a bit misleading for 2 reasons. One, the agency that was doing that was using a single shot taser. And so, yes, if you only have 1 shot, you're going to have, police only hit targets with their guns that they train with extensively. Only 20% of bullets hit the target. So the fact that we have a 50% single shot effectiveness rate is actually pretty good. But there's another caveat. That agency, and I'm not going to name who it is, but the way they tracked effectiveness was a little conservative. They did it by trigger pull. And so let's say you deploy a taser on somebody, they go to the ground, it works perfectly. Before you get handcuffs on, the energy cuts off, the 5-second cycle is over, and you have to squeeze the trigger again to restart the energy to get them handcuffed. By this agency's policy, that would be a 50% effectiveness rate, because they would say the first trigger pull didn't finish the job. You had to pull the trigger again. And so because of that, of course, you're going to have a much lower effectiveness rate. Just like they don't rate a gun as effective by how many bullets you fired. If you fired 10 bullets, is it only 10% effective because it took the 10th bullet? No, you would say the firearm worked. So that is a misleadingly low stat, but I agree with his sentiment. Yes, John Oliver, you're right. We do have an effectiveness problem, and that is what we're working on. Today's tasers are more effective than they've ever been, and they'll be more effective in another year. Cheers to you for highlighting this is an area we should be much more focused on, making these weapons more effective and less focused on the sensational sort of safety mischaracterization.
And again, we like the data out of the UK, or we hear it from any other agency where they're displaying a taser and they're de-escalating a situation and it's ending peacefully and they're saving a life. Like, we cheer, like we literally like cheer. Like, we love to hear that. Now, if we were diabolical and sitting here at the volcano lair, Rick, if we were
the Batcave, it's been rebranded, Mike.
Right, but that doesn't fit the story quite. But if we were in a volcano lair and we were diabolical, like, we would say, "Oh no, fire a lot of cartridges," because we would make more money. Like, we would want them to fire as many taser cartridges as possible, and we would just sell them more taser cartridges. And that's not the case. We don't want them to. We want situations to end safely for that officer and for that suspect.
Absolutely. All right, let's press on and see what else John's got for us.
So what can we do? Well, I admit, when it comes to tasers, it's complicated. I don't hate that there's at least a theoretical alternative to guns, and I guess I'd much rather police tase people than shoot them, although my ultimate preference would be for them to do neither of those and be much more aware of the actual risks involved. One way for us all to better know those risks would be to track taser usage far more closely than we currently do, which really doesn't seem like too much to ask.
You'll find no bigger fan of that argument than me, John. We have actually launched multiple programs to try to get police agencies to submit Taser use data, and it is shockingly hard to do. Partly because of our friends who sue police all the time and block training like excited delirium, that police departments, frankly, try to protect themselves and they lawyer up, and it's hard to get them to share the data. And Lord knows we're trying. And if you have any ideas for how we can get better data, we actually just launched a new program called Trend, where we found a way for agencies to share a subset of data that helps us track effectiveness. But amen, we would like to see better
So
reporting.
you're agreeing with John Oliver on this one?
Yep, there should be more reporting, and one way to do that is frankly to give police a little more credit, so they're not so worried about getting sued or thrown in jail. Right? When the aviation industry, part of the reason they're so safe is if there's any sort of accident, they have a no fault policy. Hey, report this. Nobody's going to get in trouble because we want to make airline travel as safe as possible. And so they have a rigorous reporting system. You can't do that when you're looking over your shoulder. Hey, am I going to get sued? Is my agency going to get sued? In Colorado, is my family going to get sued out of existence? It is a non-productive approach. All of this negative energy toward police has not made it better. In fact, I would argue it's made it much worse.
100%.
If you want to make policing better, the number one thing you can do is get the best possible people in policing. And when you make it such a terrifying job where, I have my board members go on ride-alongs with police officers to help them get some empathy. And one of my board members came back and she said, the guy who took me on a ride-along, we went to lunch. And we went into a restaurant, but he brought in a paper bag. And she asked him, well, why didn't you just get some food at the restaurant? Why did you bring your lunch? And you know what he told her?
Trust it.
He said, ma'am, like being a cop in America today, you can't trust what people are going to do to your food. And she said that was such a powerful moment for her to go, wow, what a thing to not to be able to go out to a restaurant with some degree of confidence. People aren't going to mess or do something gross or dangerous to your food. All right, let's keep going.
Oh boy.
Axon's execs have also reportedly urged staff to make things permanent by getting tattoos of the company logo. In fact, here's Rick Smith with one. I'm sorry, but that is just an objectively shitty logo to have tattooed on your body. It looks like a Spy Kids watch celebrating its first year of sobriety.
Well, I mean, the logo is a cool logo. I'm not too sure, but people could argue over whether that's a good tattoo or not, Rick. I have two. Several. Yeah, I have 2 Axon / Taser related tattoos.
Well, you're not getting out of here without showing us. Let's go. Show us, Mike.
No,
Not that one. No.
Oh,
Let's show them the other one.
You don't want the one. I have one on my thigh. I thought that's the one that you.
It is on your thigh, but
It's
getting
on
there
my-
could cause some trauma.
Could cause
All right,
some
let's see
trauma.
how we're going to do this. All right, let's zoom in here.
Yeah.
So, Mike,
got
move your microphone out of the way, Mike.
Well, first of all, it's embarrassing because you just showed your bicep. And it was. Let's see if I can show it this way first. There it is. Let's see.
You got to move your mic. There. Look at that. That is a moonshot. Well, tell us what that is, Mike.
Mark, grab the. I can't see which one I'm grabbing. That is a rocket ship. Got it done at the same shop that you did, Rick. And it's the same thing related to the goals that we have. And if we hit those goals, I'll put little stars around it.
And that is a Taser logo on the rocket ship.
It's a Taser logo.
And what is the moonshot you're celebrating there, Mike?
Well, we hope to celebrate the moonshot goal that the entire company has, working with our partners to reduce, just like JFK had inspired the nation on a program to put a man on the moon. We launched this moonshot program to save lives, to cut gun-related deaths between police and the public by 50% within 10 years. And we are on that mission with our police partners to do that. And if we hit that goal, you'll start seeing the stars or moons. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but I will add more to that as we progress along that goal, which again is all about trying to help save lives.
All right. Forgive the F-bomb there. I got a little emotional.
You're very proud of your tattoo.
I am. And John, you can, I'll wait for the apology, when we cut gun deaths in America and the science shows it's related to what we did, I'll take I don't know, maybe a Hallmark card from you.
Now, I do like, I mean, the rocket ship is really cool. I mean, I have to wear shorts here one day. I'm very proud of the tattoo that I have on my thigh as well. That's a very cool tattoo.
All right. Well, we're going to leave the audience to wonder about that one. We're in the home stretch, though, now. I think we're getting into a little more lighthearted fare here. Here we go.
Now, Axon insists that no employee is ever pressured to get tased or tattooed, which is a hell of a thing to have to insist. But Smith does love engaging in big displays at corporate events, attending one as Taser Man in this deeply ill-advised superhero costume.
Well, I mean, that is ill-advised costume.
Yeah, I gave you a spontaneous F-bomb. Sorry about that, John. Yeah, you got me. There's actually a story about that costume was pretty bad. And I actually hired a professional to do it, but unfortunately, there's a long story. She lost a family member, and anyway, it kind of came together at the last minute. And
well, I mean, the idea, it was a good idea, and the message you were getting across and the fun about it, but it was ill-advised because I was in the front row, so it was a very revealing outfit as well.
Well, actually, that was not it. This was phase one. And so later that day, we're like, you know what? This one didn't quite come out. So I went to one of our engineers and we made Taser Man round 2. Yeah. It was a little better. I think this is the one that was a little too anatomically revealing and probably led to some scarring of people in the front row at our company meeting.
I mean, if he wanted to take a shot at this, that would be the shot to take. I feel like that is.
Look, this is from my personal archives.
And that one is ill-advised for sure.
But in case you wonder what's going on here, look, at Axon, we're people. Yes, we're enthusiastic about what we do. We get tattoos. We get hit with the taser. And every year when we have a company kickoff meeting, it's a cartoon. Or I'm sorry, it's a costume party.
Yeah.
And look, we like to have fun. It's easy to make a corporate meeting suck. We never want to be a place where people dread coming to work. And so the first day of our company meeting, that year it was superheroes. And you can look, this is great. I think that was
Noah.
Noah is Buzz Lightyear. Craig Trudgeon that runs our digital evidence management business. He was Bumblebee. I think this was Brian Wheeler as Batman.
Yep. Very bad Batman. That's not a great costume.
Or you go to let's go to our Vietnam office. There's Josh Isner who runs the company doing, I don't know, some sort of Taylor Swift thing he's got going on. Vito in his, Asian sort of robe. This is me, and this is our general counsel, Axl Rose / Isaiah Fields. Look, we have fun. People, you are not bored when you come to one of our company meetings. There's Jeff Cunnins. He actually did a live music performance right before he got hit with a taser, or Brian Wheeler doing, I think it was a little Amadeus Mozart.
I don't know what Brian is. I need to talk to him about his costumes.
And if you think our corporate headquarters in Scottsdale knows how to throw a good kickoff event, let me show you our team in Vietnam. These are our employees. These are not professional actors. We got drones capturing this.
They know how to bring the energy.
Yes, they did. In fact, here, let me show you sort of the little...
Again, these are employees.
These are all employees.
Wow.
So yeah, we work on serious problems, but you know what? We try to have some fun doing it.
Yeah.
And I do want to end on a positive note where John legitimately roasted me. Here, let's go to the tape.
We shouldn't keep using tasers like they're magic wands, because they're not. Or pretending deaths that occur after their use don't happen, because they do. And if Axon doesn't want to talk about this, then I will. But I'll do it in the most Axon way I know how. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome me. Hi there. Hi, everyone. Hi. Thanks so much for having me. Listen, before you say anything, I know I look a little different, a little less stiff than usual. But don't worry, it's still me. It's just this version of me can dance. Look, I'm dancing now. Whee! I've never felt so connected to my body before. I love this. All right, stop. Look, there are a few rules that we should have regarding tasers. First, they're clearly a weapon, so they should be regulated like one. Second, they should only be used in extreme situations, not as a first resort. And finally, no one should ever get tased with their mom as part of a corporate team building exercise, because that's a very weird thing to do. Now, if you'll excuse me, in my last few moments in this body, please let me enjoy having an ass. Look how happy I am! We're living our absolute dreams! That's our show. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night!
Well, before we get to the avatar, I have thoughts. But his three things, like one, regulated as a weapon. We talked about that. Like,
We laid that to rest. Like that would not help at all.
not help at all. It's not really done the way he thinks is
Yeah,
done.
it would do nothing. It would have nothing to do with safety.
Yep.
It would only have to do with preventing criminal misuse, and that's debatable. But we're regulated in a much more tightly safety controlled area than firearms.
Two, his second point is trying to restrict the use of a taser in the most serious. I can only assume, but we talked about this too. Like, you do that, there is research that shows it. There is data, peer-reviewed data, that you will increase fatal officer-involved shootings. You will cause more death. You will not save lives.
You will get people killed. If you tell cops you got to wait until it's a deadly force type incident, they're going to go straight to their gun. It's unequivocal and proven in the scientific literature. Sounds like a good idea, John, but that'll get people killed.
That would get people killed. And then the last one that we didn't show it, but that is one of our employees, Alyssa, who's one of our lawyers. She had her mom. She volunteered. She's so excited about the company. Like, her mom took a hit on a taser. It was at first, they called it the first mother-daughter hit. Like, I mean, whatever. Like, that's just like, no one forced them to do it. She was very happy. It was a bonding experience. And they made some very derogatory comments about her and her mom needing therapy. Like, that was insulting. But it was something that her and her mom bonded over. So, like, his three final points are just three ridiculous points. And the second one is going to get people killed.
So I do want to come back. Nice job on the avatar. Yeah, you made fun of me. And actually, I'm jealous. Your avatar is badass. Can I get that guy's phone number? So the avatar is something I've done when I can't be two places at once. Like, for example, the one he showed during the show, I was presenting and I use an actor, frankly, not one that's as good as his. I had COVID. And so I had to miss my own conference. And instead of just showing up on a screen, I had an actor wearing a helmet with me on an iPad. I presented at international conferences where they wouldn't let me present by Zoom because, like, people are sort of like, whatever, I'm not going to, if you can't be there, we're not going to let you present. But if I send an actor, then not only is it sort of interesting, but look, it's weird and people remember it. If you're at a conference and you see presenter after presenter standing on stage, and then there's this sort of wild moment where, what is this? Like, this person comes up, and actually my new avatar, I should have had a picture. Maybe I'll show it next week. My son, Drake, I was on a trip and I had to present back in Scottsdale, and my 14-year-old son was in the avatar. It was a pretty cool moment. He got to be me. We were connected across the universe. He was dressed as an astronaut with my face on an iPad. And all right, maybe it's a little weird. Maybe it's a little fun. I'm not going to stop doing it because it makes me more productive. It allows me to be two places at once. And people tend to enjoy it. And I see you got a kick out of it too. I just wish I had an avatar as good as you. That guy could dance. I wish I could dance.
Yeah, I've seen you try. You cannot dance. And I've been involved in many Avatar episodes because everyone Drake was up on stage and whoever you were. Like, and you're always, and almost all the times that you're doing it, it is in front of our police customers. It is you trying to interact, you trying to be there with our customers to listen, to learn, and to support them. So is it goofy? 100. Yes. Like sometimes it's like when Drake did it, we pulled it off. You pulled it off. The team pulled it off. There have been other times where it's like your face is not quite there, but as you said,
or bad internet and it freezes up.
bad internet, but people, our customers, which is who we care about. We do not care about a comedian on HBO. We do not care about a reporter who writes for Reuters. We care about our customers, the police officers, the men and women who are out there doing the job every day. They love it when you do it. And they still talk about, if they were in the audience and they saw that avatar, they talk about, I saw Rick's avatar. It's like, it is a pretty cool thing.
Well, and it allows me to, with that one in Scottsdale where Drake was the avatar, I was able to join for the cocktail party. So even though I was across the world, you can't do that from Zoom. I was walking around talking to people at a cocktail party for 45 minutes. In fact, I used it once. I was in Hong Kong on a business trip, and Doug Clint, our general counsel, retired, and I missed his retirement party. So I showed up as the avatar, and we've got these great pictures of my dad and Doug in tuxedos at his retirement party, and I was there in a tuxedo in the avatar. So, yep, we do some goofy stuff at Axon. I think we're a fun place to work. We've got personality, and we're not going to be scared of it, because what we do is indeed controversial. We deal with some heavy topics. And so we also like to, let off some steam and have some fun.
Now, we've taken 2 episodes to talk through this. I mean, we've talked about this in many episodes. Like, we don't always respond to the criticism. We don't give air to some of that. But I think it's important that we did that this time.
This one hit home. I had some of my board members and some of my employees really freaked out, and they saw this and they were like, hey, what is this true? Or are we killing people? Like, what's going on? There was a lot of pressure for us to respond, and we wanted to take our time and do it right. Now, I'll tell you this, look, in the world today, we've learned if you just repeat lies enough, people believe them, right? It's hard to know even what's true. In fact, back in 2005, when we were under incredible scrutiny, and that may be one of our next episodes when we go through our history, our general counsel, Doug Clint, his own wife, saw so much negative stuff in the news. She said, Doug, you sure you're doing the right thing? Like, are you guys killing people? And that started to happen here too. So we wanted to set the record straight. No ill will. Again, I maybe got a little emotional here. This is my life's work, and I'm emotional about this stuff. So I apologize for maybe some of the negative energy. John Oliver, I remain a fan. I think you're a funny guy. And I hope maybe we can grab a beer at some point and put this all behind us. Because I don't think there was any malicious intent. But hopefully you've seen some of the arguments we put forward, and maybe you didn't have it 100% right on us.
I think it's a good place to end episode 12 of the Boldly Go podcast, which you can find, as you know by now, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And we hope you continue to listen and subscribe to those channels. And of course, you can follow Rick on X. He is at Axon Rick, and you can follow me on X. I am simply at Mike Wagers. We certainly drop behind the scenes pictures and videos and different things related to the Boldly Go podcast on our Twitter/X accounts. And also, we started taking questions on X. So in future episodes, you will, if you send a question to me or you send a question to Rick, on future episodes, we will continue to do our AMA, which we've done in past episodes. So
one thing I want to say is like I said, I personally went through the show. I tried to respond to everything. So if I miss something, send us questions, let us know, and we'll address it. We're not afraid to address any of the critiques coming our way.
Well, Rick, I will admit, I'm a little tired after doing this. Anything else before we...
It's approaching midnight. I got to be up at 5 a.m. to catch a flight tomorrow. But it was worth it. I feel like I think we set the record straight today.
Set the record straight. Mark, are we good? Mark says we're good. I think we're going to call it a wrap.
Kool-Aid, how we doing?
All right.
All right.
Let's call it a wrap, and thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time.